This episode, how to avoid plumbing emergencies. Well, this show is all about saving you time, money, and aggravation and keeping your house dry. This is a bunch of tips that you need to know to stop plumbing emergencies. Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show, home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros. Thanks for listening to another edition of the Handyman Pros Radio Show, where our goal is to help save you time, money, and aggravation on your home maintenance and repair. This edition is entitled How to Avoid Plumbing Emergencies. And here to help me explain, it's my old plumbing buddy, or maybe not, Johnny.
No, but he is an emergency.
A train wreck. Yeah.
It's a train wreck. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. That's right. We do not. By the way, folks, we do not make any of this stuff up, or actually, we make most of it up. But anyway, we do not script this in any way whatsoever. We do script the basic outline. But anyway, you've all figured that out already if you've listened for a while. Johnny, what's been going on this week? Anything exciting?
Well, Larry, I was over doing some work for one of my customers. And I was actually, when I was installing the baseboard, we got to talking about his plumbing emergency that he had. And you and I had just redid that bathroom.
He didn't have another one, did he?
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
No, but that brought up what we're about to talk about right now. And that, and I had brought up a few things to him. And I said, hey, when was the last time that you looked underneath your refrigerator? I've had some experience with that.
So tell our clients what that plumbing emergency that he had was, because it's kind of interesting. This is something that's not it's more common than you think, but it's not common, right?
If I understood it right, it was a bend. Or something happened with the drainage coming out of his basement toilet outside the house, and it backed up.
So what he had, and I've seen this before. So what he had, and he referred to it in exactly these terms, he had a belly in his sewer line. So what it is the line goes out and it has a dip down and then it comes back up. And he explained to us that he had a whole bunch of people coming over to the house to spend an extended period of time, which put a stress on not a stress, but when you have a lot of people in a home, you use a lot more water and there's a lot more toilet flushing and stuff that goes on. And effectively what happened is that there was a little bit of, not necessarily blockage, but it restricts the flow in that bend, and that caused the backup. And folks, that backup is not a fun backup because, of course, it's mostly from the toilet, right? And so it's not a good one. And it did happen in his case. See, his wasn't all that bad because he has a downstairs in a basement. And so it only got a relatively small area of his home was water damage. And I say a relatively small area. It was probably, I don't know, Johnny, what do you think? A couple hundred square feet, maybe? Not even, I don't think.
Yeah.
But folks, this can be a very serious, this can be the whole basement, or if it happens in a floor above a floor, it can be the whole house. So it's really not a fun one. But I just wanted people to understand that's what he had. He had a septic issue, and it was caused by a belly in the line, and it requires digging the line out and fixing it. And it happens because of just through time, different soil compositions and things, and you'll get a little settling,
fails,
and it just moves a little bit and it bends, and then the next thing you know, you'll come out with this problem when you have 25 teenagers flushing toilet paper down the toilet,
or taking showers or whatever it is.
Or even showers.
The whole thing was the main line that went out to the
Yep.
But you had to get new carpet, the whole bit. Anyways,
all right, before we dive into the rest of the topic for the tips, please like and subscribe both our YouTube channel and our podcast, on whichever players you're listening to. We do YouTube, by the way, folks. So if you want to see our massively gorgeous faces, right. But we are out there on YouTube. It's Handyman Pros Radio Show on YouTube. So we do have some pictures every once in a while. Not so much on this one, but we do on some other ones. So it is what it is. All right, Johnny. Let's start into some of these tips. These are tips that'll help you avoid plumbing not disasters, but plumbing emergencies. They're really, the goal is to help save you some time, money, and aggravation. But you'll save a little bit of money on this one. What's the first one, John?
Well, I think it's a little preventative measures here. look at your water bill.
Yeah, monitor your water bill.
Honestly, that's the first and foremost thing that that'll lead you to other issues.
Correct. We had a client, Johnny. We had the client who had the $30,000 water bill in
Yeah,
1 month, folks, in 1 month.
yeah,
Um, it was John told me this. This is the client contacted him first. John tells me this, and of course, me, I'm a math guy. I'm like, how many gallons of water is that? And I'm like, is that even possible? Well, then I took the flow rate of a 3/4 inch line, and
yeah.
here's the short answer: it was 1.5 million gallons, and it is possible in
Yeah,
a 4 week period. It was a
it was quite a mess. I mean, it was I think it was in 1 month. I think it was 12,000. The next one went up, and I think he wound up. They wanted at the end of this whole thing. The story there is that they wanted, I think, 30 grand from him, and I think he wound up settling for 9.
Yeah, I thought it was
And now,
5, but it doesn't matter.
so yeah, it doesn't matter. But
Indication of a problem.
he also had to spend a lot of money to get the whole place, the whole his whole line house replumbed, or not the whole house, but the incoming line replumbed, because it was going underneath a driveway that he built. Nobody knew where it was going.
Right. And we still don't know where all that water went.
Well,
It's still
he
a
lives
mystery.
kind of on a creek, so I mean it probably flowed down in there, and nobody knew. You couldn't see it. I mean, it's all wooded and everything. So it was. And anyways, the end of the story was quite a mess. And you just got to keep your eye on your water. Now, hopefully, it doesn't happen like that to you. But
Well,
when your
that's
bills
that's
go
an
up,
extreme case. Yep.
and
But if your
my water bill went up one time, and I was like, "What?" It's out of the ordinary.
out of the
Okay?
ordinary, right?
And I think I've told this story before. Is that one of my toilets was leaking into itself, and I didn't even it was even hard to detect.
Right. And the
It
thing
wasn't
is,
gurgling. It wasn't doing anything.
it's drip, 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 and it's many gallons a month, and it'll be a $10 increase over what you're used to. Now we're not talking about summertime in the South where you're watering your lawn, and your bill doubles. It's nothing like that. But if on a normal basis, if you spend $20 and it goes to $30, you've got to check for something. So that's the first one. Monitor your water bills, right? This is a big one. We've talked about most of these at one time or another, but we're going to talk about this again. Watch what you put in your drains and toilets, folks. It is not a disposal area. It is not for a lot of items, Johnny. Is there anything in particular we've discussed before?
Yeah, those wipes especially. I've seen wipes that they're what was on it? It was like plumber approved, and I'm like, no.
No plumber. Well, some plumber got paid a big payout.
Yeah,
to
it
approve
was.
that.
Yeah,
That's what that
who's
is.
the plumber? And so he want to cite this. Give me a citation on that one. But it's like don't put anything down. I mean,
Yeah.
I just you're
Disposable
asking
wipes.
for trouble. Let's just put it that way.
Disposable wipes. Watch your fats, oils, and greases, right? Now, I'm not saying every single drop, but don't take a whole pot full of hot grease and pour it down the drain, okay? Because there's some physics and some chemistry that goes on there. You pour hot into cold, you get expansion on the pipes, but the other thing you get is now that stuff congeals and turns hard,
Yep.
and you have this solid mass, and you pour that on top of a flushable wipe. Now you have an indestructible
Yeah.
ball that you will not get out without busting it up. Anyway, watch your fats, oils, and grease. Also, any hard items, don't let your kids flush Legos down the toilet. I know that sounds funny, but seen it, right? Seen it. Taking those leaks out, taking those clogs out. Hair, watch, my wife has really long hair. We have actually hair catchers in our drains and stuff, but watch the hair because it all is things that catch on it. Chemicals too. Watch your harsh watch chemicals. Don't pour paint down the sink. I mean, in quantity. You can wash a brush out and stuff like that. Put a lot of water in with it just to wash it out, but don't put a lot of don't put solid material down there at all. Just don't. Do yourself a favor. You're just asking for trouble.
And I'll tell you, let me back up just one quick. When you guys do plumbing, when you do plumbing work, when you're putting in new P-traps, or especially in showers, when you're rebuilding your shower, make sure that that all the connections are clean and that there's no burrs on those connections.
And that's
I mean,
another
make
tip.
them very, very slick, because as soon as you have one burr on the plastic, it's going to catch a hair, and then that hair is going to catch more hair, and
And
it's going to be a pain
it's a
forever.
cycle. It's a cycle. It's a catch cycle.
So
Also,
that's avoidance.
one other thing too is avoid harsh drain cleaning chemicals, folks. If you need to pour Drano down in there more than once in a year, you've got a different issue that you need to fix physically. It could mean snaking the line. It could mean a lot of things, but don't use too much of the drain cleaning chemicals because they eat the pipes away. That's the part you might not know. They eat the pipes away. And if you use it too much, you're going to eat your pipes into holes. You'll literally put holes in your pipe. These are emergencies you really don't want to have and or pay for because they're expensive to repair.
Well, and
Expensive.
especially when they happen, like at
Yes.
midnight.
On Christmas
Yeah, on
Eve
Christmas
or
Day. Yeah.
Thanksgiving Day, right?
Oh, you got
Right.
yeah.
This is a true statement. This is a true statement. The busiest plumbing day of the year is Thanksgiving Day
Yep. Yep.
because people put too much stuff down their drains. And folks, plumbers love it because it pays for Christmas
Oh yeah.
because they charge a lot to
Yep.
go out on that. So anyway, just these are tips, like, right? We're trying to give you tips to help you save you time, money, and aggravation. Johnny, what's the next section?
Well,
It seems simple, right?
just do your own inspections. Just look at everything, so let me go back to that. What I opened up with was the customer talked about that had the issue with the backup toilet. Was that we started to talk about when was the last time that you looked underneath your refrigerator?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he goes, well, no, I don't. I'm like, yeah, I know, I did it for you while we were putting in your new dishwasher, but you got to be cognizant of it because there's those cheap plastic valves in the back for the ice makers. And every time I look at one of those cheap little plastic valves, it makes me just cringe. I'm like, man, these things are ready to blow.
Well, this is born of experience for us, John. Right? Remember the customer who had the little drip leak under his refrigerator for I don't know 15 years. I guess we figured
Oh, you
the
mean
hardwood.
my customer?
Yeah, the hardwood
Yeah, well,
floor
I
was
had.
shot, and in the 12-inch joist there was 10 inches of wood gone.
Yeah,
Gone.
it was a mess. It was a mess. It just drilled itself all the way through.
It did. It did.
And it never rolled out. I
No.
mean, the water doesn't roll because it was on hardwood. It just
Right.
soaked up, and it was a mess.
Yep.
So, I always, every time I think we had a show on this one time, I do a charging day, I take, when I'm not doing much and I've got, I'm looking at all my electrical stuff, all the rechargeable batteries and things, I'll take it all out, all my USB stuff. I'm refreshing everything, and I'll take out and I'll start looking up with that thing, the endoscope underneath everything to make sure because it's right there.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding. When I first saw that, I was like, wow. I mean, that was like the silent man. That's like the silent drill. That thing just went the whole way right through into the basement.
Truly,
she's like, yeah, I got a little
amazing.
stain on the basement ceiling.
Yeah. A little stain
Really?
was an understatement.
Really?
So yeah, so basic inspections, and I'm just going to kind of go. We wrote a list, so I'm just going to go through. When you open up underneath your sink, if there's water down there, you got a problem. It's probably a drain problem, meaning the P-trap just needs to be hand tightened, right? As a general rule. But they get loose because of house vibrations and walking and using and temperature change and all kinds of reasons that you don't need to really know about. But they get loose every 3 or 6 months. Stick your hand in there, tighten up those P-traps if they've got the hand turned nuts, which almost all of them do, by the way. So check those. If you got any kind of water down there, check that. Check if you've got water under your sink, check the connections on the sink faucets on the faucets because there could be a leak there. Check your caulking on your sink because there could be a leak around the caulk. But water underneath your sink is an indication that you've got an issue. What else do we have there?
Let me tell you what happened to me.
Yep.
And that is the supply line to the toilet.
Yep.
The plastic nuts that connect the supply line to the fill valves
Yep.
underneath there, it was cracked because
Very
it's plastic.
slightly, right?
Yep. And yeah, my piece of my garage ceiling fell in because it
Fun.
was coming. It was coming in. It was coming running down the pipe. It wasn't on the floor. It came down the pipe, in right through the floor, into the garage ceiling.
Yep. Yep.
So, and I didn't know what was going on, and I took it off. I didn't even see it until I put it under a magnifying glass, and there was a little tiny crack in that thing. And so, guys, you look at these things. You just have to, just inspect it all. I honestly, it's
If you have water that you can't figure out where it's from in any form whatsoever around your water filter, if you have a water filter in your refrigerator or something like that, and there's a spot of water in your fridge, potential issues. If you've got standing water, I don't know where else, around the toilet for sure, because toilet has two sides to water. There's supply side and there's drain side, and then there's also the gasket usually between the tank and the toilet. All three of those are places where you can get leaks. And it's funny, Johnny, yesterday I'm in this client's house, and she was in a condo, and she put the blue toilet stuff in the toilet. She flushed the toilet like 2 times. The people downstairs came up and said, "We have a blue stain on our ceiling." So I wasn't part of that because I generally don't work in condos above the first floor. Is that because of liability?
Yeah.
Largely because of liability. But they had somebody come in, and I don't know what the answer has been, but I personally think it's around the toilet flange. Actually, is what I think.
Well, and I'll throw another one out there. Go look at your hot water heater too.
Look at your hot water heater. It's
Because
another one.
Guess what? Take it from me. I went down there one time, and I don't know what drove me down there and into the back room one day, and I looked, and I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah, there's water
There's
everywhere.
water underneath the... I'm like, yeah.
This is actually another one. Is every so often you need to drain your hot water heater, right? You need to get the gunk out of the bottom. There's a valve down there at the bottom. It's pretty simple. Drain it out. You need to drain it out. It gets the crud out of there. It gets the rust out of there. Another thing is check your anode rod if you're so inclined. So all electric hot water heaters have it's called an anode. It's a little electric thing, and anyway, it keeps the inside of the hot water heater from. And if you have issues, then hire somebody to do it. But you only need to do that about every 3 years. But every once in a while, you need to check your anode rod because that'll save you some time. It'll make your hot water heater last about 3 times longer if you change it once in 20 years. Crazy kind of stuff. Have your PRV valve checked as well. So PRV valve is a pressure relief valve. Comes into the main house right after the water main. The way you check it is usually you just put a pressure valve or have a plumber do it every once in a while or a handyman. And we do it. Johnny and I do it all the time. I do it all the time for customers because I have the piece. I put that thing on there. I look at the pressure. The pressure needs to be below 60 PSI. If it's below 60 PSI, we're good. If it's above 60 PSI, there's an issue. And the issue will cause multiple problems, including blowing valves out on toilets, sinks, washing machines, gaskets, anything can blow it out. It can get very, very costly, and it's a root cause problem that a lot of people don't pick off. They'll replace one.
I will tell you that if you ever get your hot water heater changed out, they should check that and make sure that your PRV valve is functioning properly, or they won't probably install that hot water heater because you can really screw things up at that point. If you're putting in 125 PSI into it. Anyways.
Well, so these are just some of the little things, and you can send us emails if you want more information, and we'll give you plenty of resources to go look up how you do this stuff. None of this is very difficult. It just is what it is. Speaking of hot water heaters, check what I call your emergency systems, right, Johnny? So what's that? There's the pressure relief valve on the hot water heater, right?
Yeah, be careful with all that stuff, folks. I'm just telling you right now. So,
sump pump.
Grew up with one.
Okay.
Grew up with one, and
you want it to work when you need it, right?
Yeah, when you open up the basement door. And there's things it looks like it's a river going through there, and things are floating around down there. And I actually have video of it. It was like this rubber ducky floating around. It was really weird.
It's very surreal.
So the last thing you want, to do, folks, is walk around in the basement where the electrical boxes are and stuff in water.
Standing in water, right?
So
So you
so yes, where Larry's going here is with the sump pump. Make sure that thing is working. If
test
you
it. How
have
do you
one,
test it? How do you test it, Johnny? What's the easiest way to test a sump pump?
pour water in it.
Pour some water in it. That's
Yeah,
right.
it's just got to float. It's like a big toilet thing. And I tell you what, the pump, they go out a lot. They will go out a lot,
A lot
because they
more than you
work.
think.
So in our case, we lived in an old house, and that's how all the water in the basement would drain out. Water would creep in. I mean, those basements weren't dried out, dried.
Yeah, it's very much in an older home. You want to make sure if you have a sump
Exactly.
pump
So
to
you
check
need
it.
that thing
Very
working.
true. Yes.
And it gets a little fun,
Musty.
sporty, let's
Yeah.
say, when the electricity goes out.
Yeah. Yeah. And these are so anyway, so check your sump pumps for operation. Make sure that they work, if you have one. If you don't have one, then it doesn't matter. If you're on a slab, it doesn't matter. But if you have a sump pump, make sure you check it. And you want to make sure the daggum thing works. Here's another one, John. This is one of my favorites. Make sure that your main water shutoff valves actually work. There are generally two. There is one at the street and there is one in the house, generally. Check them. Make sure you can turn them
Yeah,
easily.
I will.
Right?
Let me add to that, because that's a great point. And that is, and I'll add, a street a street wrench or a street key, whatever you want to call them, for
Right.
that are about $12, $9 at this point.
Yep.
You ought to buy one, folks, if you don't have one. And even just let your neighbors know you got it, because I have been involved in a few of these where the water has gone, something's happened in the house, and you can't turn the water off because those things are generally down in the ground,
Yes.
and they're
They're
bare
hard to get to. They're hard
to
with
get
a
to,
tool,
and you can't.
except the
Sometimes they
tool
won't
it's made
even
for.
move.
Right.
Trying to do it with like a crescent wrench or what, it's like, yeah, oh man, it's So after that, guess what Johnny did?
I went out and bought
the
one.
key.
Yeah. I actually bought, I've had one for a long time, mostly because when I'm doing my rental rehabs, I generally have the water turned off and then I need to turn it on just to test it, usually is what it's for and why I bought it. But I've used it. I can't tell you how many times I've used it at customers' houses. And I literally had one customer see me use it. And she looked at me, it was her, and she looked at me and she said, "How much is that?" And I said, at the time, it was about $10. This was 2 or 3 years ago. She's like, the next thing I know, she's got her own. I was like, okay, she doesn't have to call me now, but she's used it on occasion. She hasn't used it for her, but she's used it for other people. And the other thing that she's used it is she took my advice, and this is one of our last things that's actually on this list. But if you're going to travel for an extended period of time, turn your water off at the street. If you have that tool, you go up if you're going to go for a week. Yeah, it's easy. You're going to go for a week, you go up, turn the water off. Why? Something break. I had a client installed a Keurig machine, went on vacation, came back 5 days later to a basement with 3 inches of water on it that he had brand new remodel on this house, John. Easy, cost him $75,000.
Man, right there.
All the hardwoods on the upstairs floor were shot, the downstairs drywall, the downstairs carpet, just damage from, it was terrible. Anyway, because a 1/4-inch line broke and he was not around to fix it. So turn the water off if you're going to go for an extended period of time, or have your neighbors look in, whatever, but figure out a way when you're traveling. But I turn mine off. I'm going for more than a week, turn it off.
I do the same
thing.
Turn it off. I do the same thing.
It's easy peasy because I have the tool. It's easy peasy, and it takes 2 minutes, and it'll say, if something happens, it'll save you untold tens of thousands of dollars, period. End of story. Right. So, all right. So check your main water shutoff valves and check the one inside the house too. Make sure they work. And back to John's point, sometimes they're hard to turn. Well, I have found, particularly the ones at the street, if you go and massage them on a somewhat regular basis, I mean, if you do it once a year, meaning massage, meaning you open and close it, if you do that, it'll work. It works, right? But what last thing you want to do is
work. But it's not as easy without the key makes it a lot easier.
Oh, it makes it a lot easier.
And you'll find those things, folks, in the big box stores. They're generally in the irrigation section.
Yes, they are. Yep.
And they're just like it's like just a crude.
Stick with a little
It's a
fork on
crude like a rebar, two
Yep.
rebars, that are welded together. It's really it's nothing. There's nothing to them except that you can really get some leverage on those things where you can't with just about anything else because of where the
valves are
county
located.
water meters are and all that kind
Right.
of stuff.
Well, because they need to be below the freeze level or
Yeah.
be below,
Yeah.
they're
So,
underground. So sometimes it's a long way down to them. Particularly, again, both John and I came from cold climates, and up there
Yeah.
you really need one because they're 3 feet underground.
right.
And so you're really reaching way down, and you can't even get your arm down to them sometimes if you're in cold climates. So we live in Atlanta right now, and they're probably 12 inches underground. They're not very deep, but
Yeah.
but I do remember when I was in New York State, Western New York, they were a good 3 feet down because if you're going to be below the frost line, that's where you had to be. So, speaking of frost line, John,
Yes.
how do we prevent frozen pipes?
Oh, well, you can wrap them.
You can.
You can, they have heaters too for them, and I don't have much experience with that. I just know that,
Johnny,
you
you popped the
need
line in your house last winter.
No, not that. Wrapping with the heating, the heating coils that they have for that.
Right.
But I know that insulating the pipes, make sure that and if you do remodels and things like that, make sure that you know which side of the pipe that you need to be insulating. Because it's no good if you leave them exposed above your brand new remodel.
Speaking of that, John, that job that we did, right? We're talking about that water failure where the guy had the sewer backup. Remember, we opened up his walls and he had his plumbing. They had no insulation in the walls and his plumbing was on an outside wall exposed.
It's amazing.
Now,
I have seen this down here. And I don't, it doesn't, I'm not going to go through a whole weather discussion here, but it's just amazing that more people and having pop pipes, we've had our Black Swan event a couple of years ago or last year or whatever it was, but even such, I have seen this more than I have, and it's just incredible.
Yeah, and I agree. And so, folks, just to give you perspective, John's talking about a Black Swan event. We actually had two over the last 2 winters, where it's been in the single digits, which is really mighty cold for Atlanta, but it was long enough that it was causing plumbing problems for a lot of people, and it froze a bunch of pipes. And I know many homes needed to be redone because again, it literally happened on Christmas Eve, and people were out of town.
Oh, and it was a mess.
It was a mess. So back to also turning off the water when you go on vacation. If you have one of these Black Swan events, or conversely, if you live in the north and your power goes out and it's out for an extended period of time, you're going to have the same issue.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Because it just is what it is. So if the water's off, at least you mitigate some. You still have the damage, but you don't have the excessive water damage. So anyway, keep your pipes exposed here in the South on a really cold night. Run the water, let the water drip or let it run especially on your exposed faucets and things. But hopefully you're turning off to another way to stop frozen pipes is to turn the water, like your outside spigots usually have shutoffs on them somewhere in the basement. Turn them off, right, John? You turn them off, you turn those water offs. It's part of that maintenance and inspection thing. In the fall, put it on your calendar. It's going to get cold. Around here we do it in November.
I redid my whole spigots.
Well,
after that event,
yeah, because
luckily I was standing there when it happened. But,
right? Yeah, luck. You can say lucky. That's exactly what you can say. So prevent frozen pipes. That is one of the other little tricks and tips that we've got here. That's about all I've got. Is there anything else, Johnny?
No, I think that's it. I think that's it, Larry.
Those are practical.
You turn off the water before you got in a spaceship, Larry. Before they checked your pipes.
I can't even say where I was going.
Yeah. Okay, folks. We appreciate another week here.
Take us home, John.
Yeah. All right, folks. Thanks for listening to the Handyman Pros Radio Show. Don't let your pipes be frozen, and Larry and I will talk to you next week on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.